All council meetings will continue to be live streamed on the city's website. Our first order of business is roll call. Would the clerk please take the roll?
Reverend Burgess, Mr. Coghill, Ms. Gross,
Here.
Mr. Kraus,
Here.
Mrs. Cal-Smith, Ms. Strasburger,
Here.
Ms. Warwick,
Here.
Mr. Wilson, Mr. Lavelle, Chair.
Here.
5 members present.
Our next order of business, is public comment. I would like to remind all speakers that the rules of council state that comments are limited to matters of concern, official action, or deliberation which are or may be before city council, and profanity will not be permitted. After you are called, please restate your name and provide your neighborhood for the record. Our first registered speaker is Naomi Mullen. I do not see Ms. Mullen with us this morning. Our next registered speaker is Elena Zaitsoff, whom I also do not see. Our next registered speaker is Pomai Chakman Yala Haley.
Greetings and good day. Makala Ka'een, everyone. The Home Rule Powers. Subsection 101. The City of Pittsburgh has all home rule powers and may perform any function and exercise any power not denied by the Constitution. The powers of the city shall be construed liberally in favor of the city. What does this mean as it relates to the Aboriginal American Indigenous people here in North America? I'm glad you asked. Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3, and excluding Indians not taxed is the dividing line between City Council and Aboriginal Americans here in this territory. To be more specific, Congress acknowledges the contributions made by the Iroquois Confederacy of Nations and other Indian nations to the formation and development of the United States. Your government overseers reaffirms our government-to-government relationship between the United States and our Indian tribes, including all municipal governments, departments, agencies, corporations, both public, private, for-profit, non-profit, and all citizens under the jurisdiction of the same. This does not apply to Title 25 so-called Indians. This applies to our people only, the Aboriginal American Indians, as defined in the Bouvier's dictionary adapted to the Constitution, which states Indians, the Aborigines of this country, are so-called. Congress also reaffirms the trust, responsibility, and obligation of your government to our people, acknowledges the need to exercise good faith in upholding treaties with our people. I will be clear today, till time immemorial into the universe, good faith to our people here in the Delaware Territory, which you refer to as Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, zip code exempt. We shall work with local food communities and committees along with City Council to create food for us to feed all the people to last for hundreds of years. We shall implement reclamation of property throughout our lands to be restored, to prepare for service, enlightenment on the Americas, our story, our culture, building and healing skills, housing for our future 7-span generations as well. We shall hold all foreigners, immigrants, citizens accountable for their actions as it relates to our people's rights, punishable by imprisonment, fines, and or the death penalty. These are in line with the great law of peace, the law of treaties, the Constitution, international law between your government and our people. I speak for myself and my lineage nation and put on the record, I shall so move forward upon my words spoken today. I will exercise my indigenous rights with impunity. And I continue to reach and extend the hand of peace, to sit at the peace talks tables about these very serious issues that we are experiencing here in the Pittsburgh territory. You call it Pittsburgh, we call it the Delaware Territory. And your responsibility as City Council to make sure that our rights are protected. And I yield.
Thank you. Our next registered speaker is Bill Schlackner.
Good morning, council members. My name is Bill Schlachter, a longtime resident of Mount Washington. The last time I spoke to you at the standing committee, which was back in December, although we've been talking about this topic since April, we're coming in on close to a year. I highlighted the need for changes to the proposed short-term rental ordinance in order to promote community stability. Specifically, the need for primary residence to be required to be an Airbnb, and also too that Airbnb should not be permitted in multi-units. I wanted to give a little backdrop about other things happening in cities across our country. And prior to any regulation of this type of nature, cities like Philadelphia, Nashville, Denver, they experienced major instability in their housing markets, which was definitely fueled by Airbnbs owned by non-resident investor LLCs. Specifically, these corporate investors, they just gobbled up and converted a slew of buildings in the communities and turned them into Airbnbs. And oftentimes they pushed out long-time residents with the singular goal in mind: just convert as many units as possible to make more money. This predatory mentality is actively happening in Pittsburgh as we speak, particularly up on Mount Washington. And it's become a major problem for our communities. And I continue to speak about this, but yet there seems to be no sort of swiftness in action, even though when this bill was introduced, swiftness was promised. We're closing in on a year, so I don't know truly what swiftness looks like for this council. Maybe this is a cultural thing as well. I'm not sure what's going on with time in council. We don't even start meetings on time anymore. But I digress. The other issue we're having too is that if you think about hotels and you think about Airbnbs, a lot of times you're seeing these multi-units being converted into Airbnbs. And that's really a hotel that's just kind of masquerading here. And Mount Washington, for example, you see areas that were specifically zoned for no hotels. And now putting these Airbnbs into multi-units is truly just a sleight of hand around the zoning laws. And that's really not right to the community, because it's going against the promises that have been put forth to the community. And so I really want you to think about and continue to make this bill better. I don't know why it's taking so long. I've heard so many excuses over the past year. I mean, heck, I've gone and run 3 marathons since this bill has been going on. I mean, it's just not right to the community, and you owe it to the community to act on this bill in an appropriate way. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our last registered speaker is Carmen Brown, whom I also do not see with us. So that exhausts our list of registered speakers. If there's anyone in chambers wishing to speak, please come forward at this time. Provide your name and neighborhood for the record. You'll be given 3 minutes to speak.
Good morning. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Penny McCaig. I'm a longtime resident. I have a couple of issues to discuss with you today. The first one being the fact that my husband was and has been illegally suspended on a temporary basis from the practice of law. My husband is one of the finest attorneys and people, as Judge O'Toole would attest to, around. So I'm asking for some directions here, because we were promised, even though he followed the rules and wanted to let Judge Beth Lazara know that in fact he had represented this one particular person before, and she was not interested. Judge Lazara was not interested in hearing from Rick. She said that she did not like his kind and threw the paper back at him. He then proceeded to Judge Manning, who was still serving on the bench, and Judge Manning said, "Rich, I'm amazed that you've never been..." He was cited for contempt, but yet he was not held in contempt. And she wanted to first charge him with over $7,500, which is so against the law. The maximum a person can be charged for contempt is $500. Traditionally, you're charged with $100. So Judge Manning, who was still serving on the bench and well at the time, said, "Rich, go pay your $100. And he said, "It's not $100, Judge." what Judge Lazare is wanting me to pay is totally unrealistic when I did exactly according to what I was supposed to do according to the law. And then I contacted Supreme Court Justice David Wett. And I've known David a long time, like many other people that I've known. And I asked him, and he said, "Can you fax me over the paperwork?" I faxed him over the paperwork, and he reduced it to $4,500, which was still far above, but he said, if we don't go to a hearing, then this is the best way to go. And I said, as long as Richard's license will not be affected.
Thank you.
And Judge Manning,
Your time is exhausted.
my time is up.
Yes, ma'am. If you have materials, you can leave them with the clerk. Otherwise, your time is exhausted, and we need to let the next speaker speak.
Okay. Okay, so you're not interested in the fact?
Your time has exhausted.
Okay. My time is exhausted. Okay.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Greetings and good day. My title is Ikahana Hau Makina. I am the Grand Inca of the Iroquois Confederacy of Aborigine American People. The reason I am here today is to talk about fighting back. The facts have been come into view and the evidence is very clear. My ancestors' history here in America has been hidden, covered up, and obscured from view. The days of being ignored are long gone. We are moving into an era of accountability, equity, and redress, and lawful adherence to the oaths that you all took to the Constitution. We have allied with people of all different backgrounds of ethnic identities, religions, and political affiliations, and we are all in agreement that it's time to fight back. We are fighting back against the marginalization, gentrification, and the assimilation of indigenous people and marginalized people. We are fighting back against unfair housing, discrimination of all kinds, inequity in schools that foster and fuel criminal behavior. We stand united to expose rogue judges, cops, and administrators, and municipal agents who support the corrupt status quo. We are fighting back against inequitable land distribution and development. We are fighting back against unfair and inadequate health care. We are here to make sure that indigenous people are honored and the treaties that were made of old be renewed in the sense of being implemented. It's no good to just have these things on the books and no one's adhering to them. So as an indigenous woman and the chief of my nation, I am asking City Council to act in good faith towards the indigenous people as set forth in the Northwest Ordinance of 1787. We are here united, we are here strong. We are here to renew and restore and revisit and roll out a new plan for this city. We are here and we are fighting back. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Good morning, Council. My name is Lynn Thompson McKinley, and what is happening is we have started a new organization called Fighting Back. What Fighting Back is going to do is we're going to make changes in the criminal justice system. The criminal justice system is one that is so blatant where they're doing
Recording
corruption.
stopped.
They're
Recording
doing.
in progress.
It's a notification our meeting is being recorded. You can continue.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I didn't. What we're doing is we're going up against judges. We're going up to make changes in Allegheny County Jail as to where people's rights are being taken advantage of. We're taking and we're going up the ADAs, we're going up against the district attorneys. We're gonna stop this corruption in Allegheny County Jail. So what we wanna do is we wanna make council aware that what we're doing. We're going to be holding press conferences, we're gonna be filing civil rights lawsuits, we're not gonna be another place that we're gonna just sit down and not take advantage of the things that we wanna do and we wanna change. We have to change. We have to make sure that the people that are doing illegal things, such as judges, such as ADAs, such as probation officers, we want to make sure that this stops because they are violating the constitutional rights of the citizens of Pittsburgh. And it needs to stop. So we're going to be, as I said, made prevalent and make notice that fighting back is coming to Pittsburgh. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
My name is Yvonne F. Brown. I live at 715 Mercer Street, Katie Irvis Tires. You know, I come down, I've been coming for years. I've almost stopped coming. But when I see the way this council is run, you need to know the dirty little secrets. I'm sitting down here, I see it. I see it every day. When yins are on the TV, you don't see. Just like you got Burgess who refuses to come in here to be the pro tem. And he's at home. I can't see. What you doing? And then he says yesterday, "Ooh, I got my cheat sheet." Cheat sheet? What? You in middle school talking about a cheat sheet? This is our government. You are supposed to be running this government as a government, not like it. My cheat sheet, or I won't come in. I'll stay outside. You know, I get mad, and some people, and I try not to, because it's not the people's fault. It's the council. You don't come on, okay, we can't get you, all right, we'll go call somebody else, then go back to you, can't get you, go call somebody else. And I'm sitting here, That one time I came in here, with the 2 o'clock meeting, I'm there till 5, because Miss Gross made sure she called all the people that spoke. The machine was acting up, she went back to them again, and I sat there. She made sure I was one of the last. And I'm going home at 5 o'clock in the evening, I was mad. I said, you know something? Miss Gross and anybody that's running the meeting and not running it like it should go to jail. I want everybody in here, if you're doing wrong, go to jail. Because you said, but you explained to me later that that I must have misunderstood when I said it's against the law. But it must be because you don't speak, you don't answer me, and they'll answer them. I got a little confused. But citizens also, I'm a little confused because I'm angry today. But you hear where the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette is taking over the city paper. Citizens help me, and we're going to still read the city paper to make sure they don't change. And is this a lawyer, or are you a lawyer, or what are you back there talking? Because you know, yes, the lawyers talk anytime you want. This is what I'm saying. We can talk, and you got them talking behind me. That shows you the disrespect you have. You gave us 3 minutes. This was the law said, and I get 3 minutes, but you'll have business owners come in a half an hour, 20 minutes. We get 3 minutes, and you're coming into our city to put something in our city, but I can't speak up. I get 3 minutes. I tried to get 5. Ms. Harris made sure that I didn't get the 5 minutes. Even Bill Cardile, when he came down, said he would come and speak against you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
don't know how to put this up. It's a picture.
We can see it.
You can see it? Hi, I'm Bernadette. I'm Bernadette from Beachview. First, I want to say last week's standing committee, I was in awe. I was taken back to my paralegal days and just listening to the process of all of you and watching your wheels turn. It was amazing. Yesterday, I mentioned these new glasses popped off due to a water hidden open pipe. I went back yesterday. That's the pictures. It's at Garrison and Liberty, between Penn and Liberty. A foot, a child's leg, an attorney's stiletto. Not good. Today, all along Grant, I went and I shared yesterday when I was on an access van in the back. It was like being in the back seat of the Jackrabbit. For years, I've come down to town either for school. As a small child, we'd go to the Five and Dime. I always loved going to town. Even today, Point Park is where I actually pray. Anyway, something is not right on Grant Street. And I have the same gut feeling that I had when I insisted to Hillary Roman that a seeing eye dog had the wherewithal to stop the man from going down the short little block between Broadway and Hampshire. It turned out to be a massive landslide right up against the Fallowfield Bridge. I have that same gut feeling with Grant Street. Back in 1988, in a law class, a teacher would like to play in Pittsburgh infrastructure trivia, and we learned several things. There's lots of underground tunnels. We have more underground train tunnels than we have bridges. One of them goes all the way out to Oakland. They used to get all their goods that way, but there's a fourth river, and at that time it was feeding the Point, the fountain. That river goes all the way up to then U.S. Steel Building. Their parking garage sat in water. Water makes its way. If the walls are breaking from that natural aquifer and they're coming underneath Grant, that could be causing this. Because today I took more pictures. You have pipes either now up because the ground has sunk or vice versa. They may still have their covers, but they're sunken. And it is a danger. I have never seen Grant do this before. I'm telling you, it's the same gut feeling I had that turned out to be a landslide. Have a good day.
Thank you very much. Are there any further speakers? Any remaining speakers? Seeing none, that'll take us to our standing committee agenda. Our first committee of the day is the Finance and Law Committee, which is chaired by myself. We have one deferred paper, Bill 1214.
Bill 1214, Resolution amending Resolution 124 of 2020, which authorized the mayor and the director of the Office of Management and Budget to enter into an agreement or agreements with Compass Natural Gas for professional services relating to the leasing and maintenance of a mobile CNG fueling station by extending the term through December 31st, 2025, and not to exceed amount by $378,000 for a new cost not to exceed $756,000.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
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 Mr. Chair,
Councilwoman Gross?
thank you. I'm just trying to get my camera on. There we go. I appreciate it. As we discussed at length last week with the new trucks, I have a lot of questions and concerns around the compressed natural gas as an alternative fuel. I believe that Councilwoman Smith, expressed concerns as well. And so I understand that there are lots of sides to the issues, and I don't want to belabor the point today, but I'm going to vote no on this bill. So I appreciate.
Thank you. Councilwoman Warwick?
Councilman.
Councilwoman?
Mr. Chair.
President, yes. President Smith?
Thank you. Thank you. I'm on my way in, but I just want to say that I'm going to vote no today too. And not so much because of the natural gas, because I also read some information from our chief of emergency management, our fire chief in emergency management, about how we need to do a little bit better in terms of using the electric vehicles, because the batteries, there's not a good way to dispose of them. There also, you can't use the jaws of life because because electric shock. People can also explode. There was all kinds of stuff he wrote about. So I have concerns about either way, to be honest with you, but mostly because it's people to invest in the West End and drive to the West End. The city itself should be sending a message that even though it may be costly, even though it may be more time consuming, when we want to do those things, we do find a way to do those things. We find a way to invest in neighborhoods that we want to invest in. So I'm going to vote no tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Warwick.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I was at the briefing yesterday, and just based on that, a few things. Well, one, and again, this is just my understanding from the briefing. Really, we have a bunch of these trucks that are new and more coming, so that they've already been purchased, and that electric vehicles for trucks of this size, like the technology just isn't there yet in terms of the charge. Like you have to charge overnight, and there's risk of running out of a charge if given the distances that they have to go to the dump sites, et cetera. And then also with regard to the commercial fueling station in Ferrywood, that is almost 8 miles away from the Strip District where these where the trucks are kept. So in essence, that would be a 40-minute round trip to go get fuel, to fuel up, and that's with no traffic. That'd be a 40-minute round trip for our workers and then longer in traffic, which, given the amount of back and forth that they need to do, that seems like a lot. So with all that in mind, it seems like the economical choice and the sort of practical choice, at least at this point. So I'm going to support this one. Thanks.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to respond to.
Okay, hold on. Councilwoman Strasburger.
Thank you. I want to just underscore everything Councilwoman Warwick just said, and also say, let's work together to get a biodigester, something to get renewable natural gas, so that so we can use these same vehicles that we already have and will have pretty long life to be able to run on renewable natural gas from existing wastewater treatment plants, transfer stations, landfills. Perhaps we can work with the landfills that we're actually driving 30 miles out to invest in that technology there so they can fuel up there. I mean, that seems like the best possible way that we can both utilize the vehicles that we already have and are coming our way as we march toward getting electric vehicles and the infrastructure with electric vehicles that have, that allow us to charge quickly and efficiently and do so despite the large distances that they're covering. So I'm going to vote for this today, but let's also invest in the technology to allow for renewable natural gas to power these trucks, so we're not relying on fracked gas to power them. I do think that could be a really promising solution here. Thank you.
Thank you. Second round, President Smith.
I just want to say that I heard the comments about the cost, and while I will say we're not the East End, so we don't have universities, we don't have hospitals, which some people want to sue, but at the same time benefit from it greatly. We don't have those things in our district. So for us to have any investment, it has to be a purposeful effort to do so in our area. This is an area that everybody talks about when people are taken out of their communities, when there's gentrification occurring, when there's disinvestment. Well, this is one of those neighborhoods. And so we can say one thing at the table every week, or we can actually do it when it comes time to vote. So today I'm voting no. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Opposed.
One opposed. Two in opposition. Affirmative recommendation. Thank you. Madam Clerk, can you read Bill 1253 and 1254 together? Both require an executive session.
Bill 1253, resolution authorizing the issuance of 2 warrants, $15,000 each, in connection with an EEOC matter for a total amount of $30,000 in full and final settlement of litigation, including attorney fees. And Bill 1254, resolution authorizing the issuance of a warrant in favor of Mary Ann Organ and Eugene Organ, her husband, and their attorneys, Edgar Snyders and Associates, in the amount of $75,000 relating to the full and final settlement of a case filed in the Allegheny County Court of Common Pleas.
Motion to hold for executive session, please.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Both bills will be held for executive session. Need a motion to approve the invoices?
So move.
Second.
Second, can I have a motion to waive the rules of council? There are 3 separate invoices under law which exceed the $5,000 threshold, as well as 2 within DPW.
What's
The reason? It's, the ones in law are for 3 different plaintiffs that are associated with the same case, and they had to get an independent examiner to do the work. And because it had to be an independent examiner, we don't have a vendor to do that. Is there a motion to waive the rules?
So moved.
Motion.
Thank you. And
Second.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The rules have been waived. Any further discussion on the invoices?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, may I?
Yes.
I just want to take a moment to thank you for always being prepared when you come to the table, and especially assisting with explanatories and helping council to better understand how and why some of these things come on the invoices. And every time it happens, you have the answer. So clearly you do your homework, and I just want to recognize that and say we appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilman. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Invoices have been approved. Need a motion to approve the P cards.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? P cards have been approved. That takes us to Public Safety and Wellness Committee, chaired by Councilman Coghill. We have 1 new paper, Bill 1249.
Bill 1249, resolution authorizing the mayor and the director of the Department of Public Safety to enter into an agreement or agreements with the Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency and Operation Better Block for the purpose of receiving and spending grant funds in the amount of $2,500,000 to support the Safe Passages Program, which places community elders in schools to prevent violence.
Motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second with discussion.
Discussion, Madam President?
Thank you. Can we have everyone come to the table?
Thank you all for being here. If you all introduce yourself for the record.
My name's Lee Schmidt, Public Safety Director.
David Jones, Assistant Director of Public Safety.
Charles Showers, Department Business Administrator for Public Safety.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. Director, I talked to you a little bit yesterday about this. I feel a little bit better about this than I did, but I still have some questions. How was Operation Better Block chosen?
So during the pilot, Madam President, Operation Better Block was in the pilot.
Is this the pilot that was done at Perry?
Correct, yes, Madam
And this is the one that Diana Bucco from the Buell Foundation?
Correct, Madam
Said that
President.
she'd like to continue across the city?
Yes.
Did she help acquire the funding? Did she
Yes, she has
Did she have any
provided-
to say in the group being chosen? It's my understanding she has a good relationship with Lisa, and that's how some of this happens. So I'm curious because I'm also hearing decisions made on the police department based on this relationship. So I'd like to know a little bit more about it, to be honest with you.
So I can't speak to any things with the police, Madam President. I can't speak to that. Maybe the director can. I don't know anything about that.
Okay. Well, so it was chosen because it was part of the pilot program. I'll get Lisa to the table. It was chosen as a part of the pilot program. And tell me what all it entailed and why does this not come before City Council first? Because I did feel a little bit better after I talked to the director, but I just want to, for the public, because I've spoke to a lot of people
about this. So I want to make sure that, I just want to be really clear. I think the community is seeing so much money going into efforts to stop the violence in the city of Pittsburgh. Money hand over fist. And people don't care about the amount of money. They care about the results. And when you're seeing shootings happening every single day, more violence in our schools every single day, or constantly, I should say frequently, it's not making the public feel very comfortable and confident in what we're doing. And so I just want to make sure what we do actually has a good effect, and so that the public knows that we made some good decisions and how we made those decisions and what we expect to come from them.
So in general, the Perry School Safety Project was a pilot program because of the amount of violence in that particular school, that we put some outreach type workers specifically in the school, and we also have employed student ambassadors, kind of like a peer-to-peer positive relationship, which has certainly changed the culture of Perry, and they've also able to mediate some small things. They have certainly reduced the amount of violence and fights in the school, and the student ambassadors are employed to help control, work with the students to help mediate some small problems.
So they've had that in the schools before, and it's not been that effective. So tell me what's different about this, because I worked for the districts. I know what they've done in the past. Mm-hmm. How does this differ from the programs?
It's different because, one, it's more student engaged, and then you have I'm sorry?
It was that before.
And then you also have outreach workers that are in the school every day. Their only post or workstation is inside the schools, whereas they're not just passing by. That is their workstation from the beginning of school to the end. And they also do in the school, after school programs and things with the students as well.
And why was it not just, the funding not just directed towards Pittsburgh Public Schools, since it's in their facilities?
I don't have an answer to that, Madam President.
Yeah, I think we just wanted to make sure we have the partnership, since most of the outreach workers work with us, and Reverend Cornell Jones, our outreach coordinator. We wanted to ensure that continuity, so we wanted to ensure the city and Department of Public Safety were involved with it. It is obviously a partnership with PPS, with the outreach team, and with Department of Public Safety. So
where's the funding? How's it being allocated? Because what I saw was, and correct me if I'm wrong, because the program at Perry was $21,000.
Repeat that, please.
Was it $21,000? On their website, it says the program at Perry was $21,000. So where is this $2.5 million going? Where's the bulk of that funding going?
So this is to expand the program, hire additional
I know, but there's only,
workers.
What, 9 school districts, 9 high schools?
Right. But so it's also for reporting and tracking information.
Hiring of the outreach workers as well, because the outreach workers, again, Madam President, will be in each school that we decide to choose. And
how is Operation Better Block? Do we have some kind of data on how they execute grant dollars? Do we have anything like that? Any accountability?
Yes, we have been using them with our Stop the Violence grantees as well, and their track record has been pretty good. We have a great relationship with them. We work very well. They're easily accessible, and they were already working on this project as well.
I'm really curious how the community feels. I mean, from the conversations I had, it wasn't really, they were mostly concerned. So I think I need to have Lisa come to the table, so I'll wait till she gets here. Can we get Lisa to the table, please? Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Councilman Kraus. I believe I saw your hand go up. If not, I saw Councilman Wilson and Councilwoman Warwick.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I have a few different questions, but I just want to start with the details of the text here that I see. So this is an exclusive contract with Operation Better Block, or was there an RFP put out?
There is subawardee, so there are many times that a grant is multiple agencies or multiple organizations apply for a grant together. So rather than OBB and our Operation Better Block and the school district going by themselves without us being involved, we did this jointly together, just to ensure good collaboration and cooperation.
Okay, and the grant funds are coming from who again?
PCCD, which is Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency.
Okay, so we're going to be one of the entities to sign on in favor of Operation Better Block to receive these grant funds.
Correct, and the funds will actually come through us, so we'll have the control and oversight of it. We're the main sponsor. They're subawardees to the grant. Similar to how we do with the county, like our annual JAG grant, which is through the Department of Justice. The county is the primary. They funnel that money to the city and to other municipalities in the county. So there's multiple grants that are out that.
And who are the
have
other
more than
people
one.
signing on to this? PPS and
Just Operation Better Block. And
so PPS though?
They're in cooperation. They won't receive any funding. They'll just receive those services that we're providing with in conjunction with Operation Better Block.
Okay, so it is only the city applying for the grant.
No, the city and Operation Better Block with PPS sponsoring and supporting the project.
Okay. I've had the opportunity to be at the programming part at Perry High School, and I thought it was very productive. And I'm curious. So what I saw was kind of what you explained, in terms of taking youth that I don't want to put words in your mouth, so please correct me, but youth that basically, I mean, the Perry High School situation started because there was an incident that happened. They brought together the youth, and then they've been meeting with them during lunchtime for a couple of lunch periods, I believe. And so I've had an opportunity to organize something around that. Actually, we took Learn and Earn, the Learn and Earn program, when I was there to try and see how we can get, jobs, summer jobs in the hands of the youth. And I thought that was impactful. But what I'm seeing here, it says Safe Passages program, which is another program that I've heard. So I've heard you describe, I've seen it in person. I've witnessed it. But then I've also heard about the Safe Passages program, which sounds different than what I witnessed.
So Safe Passage is an addition to that, Mr. Councilman, in that after school and before school, you have people, outreach type workers or people in the community, stakeholders that have relationship with the young people as they go to and from school to help them just get home safely. That's essentially all the Safe Passage program is.
And that's what this is.
That's part of it, yes. So we were people posted outside of the schools, before school and after school.
Yeah, so that's what I've heard. So this me. So what I saw in person with the classroom, they're taking them out. That's going to be that's also under the umbrella of Safe Passages.
Yes, it's part of that program as well. Because certainly, as we know, if there are problems in the school, they can spill out into the community. Then we have the community people there to help kind of squash stuff. It just makes life a little bit easier, and the students can get home safely.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're talking about
Yes.
the right thing, because I've had a meeting specifically about Safe Passages, and I just wasn't aware that what I saw in person was part of that. All right, good. And then, how long would the 2.5 last? And how many schools?
Potentially all the major high schools, but also some feeder schools as well. And we were having some continuing conversation. I think it would be pivotal for us to go to some of the feeder schools that go to such high schools as Bashir, Perry, and the like. I believe it's a 4-year, 2-year.
It's a 2-year grant.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Thank you. Councilwoman Warwick, followed by Councilman Gross.
Yeah, so first of all, I'd like to say, so it sounds like there's definitely, so I've, with some of the other Stop the Violence programming, specifically with the work that the REACH team is doing, it seems like there is some overlap, certainly in the high schools, which is fine. There's nothing, but I would really want to ensure that these different groups are working together so that, so for example, I'll speak to my district, right? So at Alderdice, right, I know that Reach has an outreach worker who goes to Alderdice, works at Alderdice. So if Operation Better Block also has that, obviously the two of them should 100% be fully coordinated and working together. And this isn't specific to this, but we get siloed on all of these things, and that makes us less effective. So like just hearing now about this Safe Passages program, I can say that I've been dealing with issues on Murray Avenue and forward related to kids waiting for the bus, and I have concerns about kids being criminalized, business owners are having frustration. So like this would be perfect, right? This is exactly what we need. So, it's really important that we're kind of all communicating. And I know that I believe
and we are, Councilwoman. So
Yeah.
our person that helps several people, but our main contact person to help coordinate this is Reverend Cornell Jones.
Okay.
And
okay.
we work in concert all the time, and him and Mr. Tally Thompson and myself, we meet constantly, we talk constantly, and to your point, yes, you're 100% right.
Okay, great. So,
And
maybe
we have also
can
addressed, the Alderdice situation it's ongoing, and we've tried, our outreach workers have been there after school. We've been talking in conjunction with law enforcement. That's a lot going on right there.
Right. So, and I have lots of different groups so it would be, it's on my list soon to have sort of a general meeting about that particular situation with all. But at any rate, that's a separate topic. So, or not separate, but extended topic. And then also, I feel like it would be helpful for the public and for us. And I don't know, perhaps, Madam President, we can talk about the best format, right? Whether it's a post agenda or what, but where we can have all these different groups who are doing this same work come to the council table, explain what it is they're doing, explain to each other what they're doing, right? So that we can have clarity, the public can have clarity. And I know that there's this reporting rubric that we're putting together. So maybe that's something Councilman Lavelle and I spoke, maybe after that becomes available. But at any rate, I think that would be helpful for everybody, because there is so much good work being done, but I think that unfortunately the sort of message often with the public is, well, where's all this money? We're still seeing shooting, so nothing's happening. So I think it's helpful for people to know some more detail about the inner workings of these programs, the protocols, et cetera.
We welcome that. Thank you.
Yeah, and maybe also information about how these things are working in other cities, right? And how they have worked because there is obviously evidence that this type of violence intervention works, right?
Understood.
It just takes a little time. So, yeah, maybe that's something we can talk about setting up. So
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Councilwoman Gross?
Thank you all. I apologize for being remote today. So I have said this recently about other legislative items, that I think part of the difficulty for the public and for council is that we're only hearing about these things at the last minute when the grants have already been received. And council was discussing this at the table with the administration, I think just last week, that you might, as the administration, get better program results and better services by involving council input at the front end when you're doing the grant seeking and designing your programs that you're applying for the grants. That we should be discussing what you are looking for outside funding for, and maybe even needing council approvals to do the grant seeking. Instead of just coming to the table saying like, oh, surprise, this money fell from the sky and we're going to do this thing, is, I think, making me uncomfortable. On the other hand, I love the concept of introducing seniors and elders into school buildings and interacting with our city kids. And I've often thought that schools were strange in a way to keep students apart from other age groups for so much of their early lives. It just is a, not the healthiest situation and prevents kids from learning. We have things like bring your kid to school day once a year. Or, I just recently went and read to the kids at Wolfsler School, and it was amazing and wonderful, but that's like a one day a year thing. And that I'm in favor of this concept. But I also have to say there's almost no detail, either in your presentation here at the table, nor in the attachments to this legislation that are in the public record. There's a cover letter that has 2 sentences. There's a fiscal impact statement that just says, we're getting this money, and it'll be a 2-year program. I could read it out loud because it's incredibly short. It'll be professional services, day-to-day operations, hiring necessary staff. And it literally just says, we're receiving these funds, $2.5 million to support the Safe Passages program, which places elders in schools. And there's no detail at all in any of these. So I would like to see the grant application. And so if you could email that to me, I'm happy to support this program. But in the future, I think, I and several other members have said, this isn't a good enough system that we just ourselves and the public are just kind of surprised by these outside dollars, and they may not be our citizens' priorities or the council priorities, and so I think we'll be talking about a different process in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we go to second round, just a quick question. The 2 hires that we're looking to make to oversee the program, just structurally, where will they be housed within public safety?
Can we have Lisa come to the table too? Do you mind, since she's here?
I don't know. It's Chief Frank, if you would come to the table. But go ahead, Chief Jones.
Yes, sir. So they would be housed in public safety. However, one would also would spend time in Operation Better Block as well.
I'm assuming you would be their
Yes, sir.
direct overs. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Got it. Okay. Second round, Madam President and Councilman Wilson.
So just a couple things. Lisa, Director Frank, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about, Chief Frank, right? Chief Frank. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about how this process came about, how it was selected, Operation Better Block. Part of the rumors I mentioned earlier going around that Diana Bucco and you have a good relationship, and she liked what was happening at Perry, and that's how this came about, and that she wanted to expand. And let me just say this, preface this by saying I love Diana Bucco. She and I have a long relationship together, working relationship together. She helped me do some things in the West End that uncovered a lot of things that we needed to have uncovered. So with that said, I want to say that. But at the same time, I'm wondering how her relationship and her seeing what happened at Perry, that somebody thought that this was a good idea to apply for state dollars. It's my understanding there's around $14 million in state funds coming to this region, and almost all for the same types of work. I have our offices bringing out the paperwork. So I'm curious how this is going to differ, how you feel this is going to be effective, and what happened, who's going to hold them accountable, what's the reporting process, all that stuff. But I do want to say, I feel much better today. If you think this is crazy today, you should have saw me yesterday when I talked to the director. So I feel much better today. He calmed me down a little bit here, but I'm still going to say that I have a lot of concerns.
Everybody feels better after they talk to the director. Not I think quite the picture you have there. So the PCCD grants are. Let me take a step back. Sometimes we get invitations and opportunities to apply for money that are pretty open-ended, like, oh, there's money for infrastructure, what do you want to do? Or, those kinds of like the federal grants or the earmarks or somewhat. The PCCD ones are pretty constrained, and they'll say, you can apply for money to do equipment, or you can apply. So this one was one that was very clearly pegged to work that you want to do around education. It wasn't for any kind of work that you wanted to do at all, and it was, you could apply for up to, I think, $3.5 million or something for work that was specifically around education. And, and we know from all the things that everybody has said is that, there's a very kind of close relationship between what happens in school, what happens after school, what happens in our streets. And we know through the director and through David and others, we did know about what was happening at Perry and the results that they were getting there. So we actually reached out to them to say, let us understand more about this program, let us understand the metrics, and is this something that we should apply to do at other schools that are struggling? I will say that Diana was really gracious, because this is something that she kind of worked on, cooked up, funded for a long time. And I said, is this going to feel like us stealing your idea? Is this going to feel, would you help us with the budgeting? Would you? And she just very graciously said, look, if this is going to save kids' lives, all yours. And so she did, help us sort of, as did Mr. Thompson, help us to understand exactly how it was organized so that we could budget for it, so that we could put in a budget to expand this over 2 years to other schools. And so it was mostly just grounded in our being incredibly impressed by the results that they were getting at Perry and wanting all of our students to have that opportunity.
How long did you study those results?
How long did I study the results? Well,
how long were they
I
studied?
Probably only.
Was it sustainable? Is what I want to know. That's what
Well, sustainable. I think that will be an open question after the 2 years, and so it is, to your point, extremely important that we track to make sure that the results are as as replicable as we hope that they are. And then I think the ongoing sustainability could be the responsibility of the school district. It could be the responsibility, it could be lots of people could think about how we do that.
I asked you why we applied and not the school district directly, and you said so that we do have some saying that. So that makes me realize then that we're going to have some staff involved, we're going to have some police officers involved. So then it brings me to the question why it didn't come before city council, and why there was no discussion prior to this program being applying for the grant. I think that it's something city council is looking at now. I can tell you we are, to talk about how we're distributing and applying for grants across the city of Pittsburgh. We need to have accountability for all these public dollars, and there's way too many dollars going out the door and not seeing a lot of results back. So whether it's coming from the state, a private, entity, however we're getting it, I want to make sure that what we're doing is effective for the residents, that we see a reduction in homicides, we see a reduction in violence, that we see more people getting help. We want to see results. And the people want to see results. They are so tired of every day you put on TV, put on the news, you pick up a newspaper, and you see violence across the entire region. It's not isolated to Pittsburgh, but Pittsburgh likes to set itself apart as a leader. It's time to lead in this area, the area that we most need to help in. I think our downtown should be a safe place for people to go, but so should our neighborhoods be a safe place for people to live. And our schools should definitely be safe. So if there's a way we can do this and it works, I'm all for it. But I want accountability. I want some reporting back. I'll work with Ricky Moody again on this as well to make sure that we have some kind of reporting. And I know that you guys have been working really well with him, so thank you for that.
Could I just address the second part of your question, which is the other PCCD money, which I think you thought maybe for similar kinds of things. The other PCCD grant that we got was actually for equipment. It's not for programming or any of that at all. It's really equipment in the police bureau.
Okay, and. Well, I would like to know what that is too, to be honest with you. So I have a question about everything. Every dime we spend, I have a question about.
That was our big PCC grant, was for equipment in the police bureau.
And then that brings me to this point, is that there's a lot of mental health issues, and I'm wondering what the status is of the AHN contract. I mean, we still don't have that contract in Spanish, is that right?
Correct. We're working.
I don't know who wants to answer.
Yeah, we're still working on that. We meet with them weekly. We're working on mostly the transition of the staff. Back and forth, we have to work with the staff that does not live in the city to give them an opportunity to decide, make choices and work with us on that. So,
okay, so when do you anticipate that something will be done? Because at this point, it's gone on for years, right?
Well, I'm not sure if this is clear to folks. The work started on ESG funding, so the work has been going on, and the work. The contract is, I don't mean to say, the contract is an incredibly important thing to get done, and we really are looking forward to bringing that forward very, very soon. It's not getting in the way of us continuing to do the work, because the team is working, the roots teams are out, the hubs that we have are open, and so on and so forth. So there is urgency to finish the contract. I just want to assure you that because that's going to switch us to the ARPA dollars.
The contract?
I'm sorry?
So that brings me to the question, why are we pursuing the contract? If the work's continuing without it?
Well, because the ESG money is going to run out, and we need to transfer over into the ARPA funds.
Okay. And then lastly, I want something from the law department to say that this came through us the right way, that we're voting on it. It's okay for us to vote on it. I just want some approval from the law department to cover council. Okay. Thank you.
Wilson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, that kind of goes into what I was going to talk about, the tail end of what you were requesting, Council President. So whenever I recently worked on a bill where it was a sub-awardee that would receive funds. First off, let me just make clear, like, I went, saw it in person, have a good relationship with the outreach workers that work there, just saw them and the students at the One Northside event last week, and, it was phenomenal. The students were there, they were engaged, they're very proud of, what they're a part of. That said, in terms of process, like recently I had to pull back the brakes on, something I was working on, and to make sure that we were on the up and up with doing that. And my concern is that I was advised by our law department and procurement to change language and to make sure that we were doing this appropriately, and that language in the bill, and that we would put out an RFQ, request for qualifications, for a sub-awardee for our ARPA funds. And so I'd like to know how this is different than that, and if that's also the same guidance that I've been recommended should continue here.
Yeah, so this legislation is to accept the grant. There will be further legislation, Charles and I talked about it yesterday, to engage with OBB to complete this. Now, OBB is written in the grant, so that typically is where law starts to come in and figures out what the procurement process is to ensure we're complying with both the PCCD requirements as well as city code requirements. So there will be additional legislation in the future regarding the actual agreement with us and OBB around this specific grant, but we can't do that until we have the approval from council to accept and start the grant process.
Okay, yeah, I see the difference. I guess I'm wondering, just if that. So, for instance, what you're describing is that the ARPA funds come in, and it's not like we applied for those funds with other organizations. I get that. This one is, okay, this is the group that we, think can do the work through this other entity, the PCCD, and they're going to evaluate that and possibly honor the funds. You would win the grant. So I understand that the name is already, like, you have to have, I'm assuming you have to have a name to get, like, a group that already you've selected.
You have to present a plan, right? Yeah. Because when they review grants applications, we have to make sure that we have a solid plan that they believe will work. Since OBB has already been doing the work at Perry, they're who we worked in with the grant. Again, that we will still have to go through a process to engage with OBB and contract with them as the sub-awardee or contractor for the work at the other schools and to continue the work at Perry. So there'll still be some additional processes that will come in front of council before the program is fully up and running.
Okay, well, I'll reach out to law, because I'd like to get that answer before final vote in terms of is this is this different or is it the same? So, but before I take a final vote on it.
And I heard Councilwoman Gross, ask to see the application. I think we could also send you the solicitation, which asked us to. It was fairly clear that they wanted to see that the project that you were applying for was to expand something that was already kind of on the ground and working. And I'd also like you to see the letters of support that went with the application from various people in the school district, community organizations on the north side who had seen the things. So, I'll just, you can just see the whole thing.
I have to go third round.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else second round? If not, third round, Madam President.
Sorry. The groups that you mentioned that wrote letters of support, are they receiving any of the dollars?
Probably not as groups, because the way that the program works is that credible or trustworthy community partners are actually the folks who are funded to do the work. So I don't know, like you wouldn't send an organization into the school. Now their members may be the people who are tapped. They are community members who are tapped to be the elders who are in the school or the credible, and then of course the kids themselves begin to receive payments.
So I'm asking this because since I've been here since 2009, every time a group comes and seems supportive of a program, they come to the table, and they came to the table for the Housing Opportunity Fund and insisted they weren't going to get a dime from the funding, and they got money. They got money from the funding. So every time somebody comes here, it seems like they're getting paid to come here and speak publicly, and I want them to be honest about it, is what I want them to do. Yes, we're getting funding. No, we're not getting funding. But mostly what I was just telling Councilman Lavelle, I think it would be so helpful, and we're going to get maybe our budget office and your budget office to work together, or our budget office and OMB to work together, to maybe work with you to come up with a chart so the community can see these are the dollars that we have, this is where they're going, this is why we're funding it, why we're involved, something visual for people to see, and these are the amount of people that we served. And have, when I ran a federal program, we had to people had to sign in sheets. You had to keep track of who you were serving. It wasn't somebody could just write down somebody's name. They verified that. And so I think it's incumbent upon us, because this is such a serious issue, to make sure that we're giving the public some real clear information and confidence in what we're doing is going to work and be in the best interest of the public for real. So for me, if we can come up with some kind of visual, I think, and post that places, I think it might be more helpful.
Thank you. Councilwoman Gross, you have your hand up. Were you trying to get back in? Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I appreciate being sent the grant proposal. I will look out for that, and the support letters that put a little more details on this. I know that Councilwoman Smith said she was familiar with the program at Perry, and Councilman Wilson is familiar with the program at Perry, but I actually think I'm a little confused. Did the program at Perry also have city involvement? Because I don't remember voting on that one.
No, the program at Perry was they work with us because we work closely with Operation Better Block, and our police officers are obviously work closely with outreach team and outreach workers. So there was some communication and coordination there, but we were not directly funding that or doing anything more than just our standard work that we do with all outreach workers in the city. With this grant, we will be more involved with this one because it is expanding citywide. We want to ensure that, as Councilwoman Warwick mentioned, we want to ensure that we're not creating silos, and we're making sure everything goes and flows together between all the different outreach teams and workers in that space.
And the gang violence intervention, are the outreach workers that you're referring to? Group violence intervention.
Group violence and community violence intervention workers, yes.
Okay, and that is going to be replicated here. And I actually don't see the name of the schools. Did we talk about that? in this, there's no material. So are we naming the schools? And are the public safety, is the public safety involvement here restricted to just outreach workers? And the $350,986 for salary and benefits of new public safety employees that is being used. Are those for new outreach workers specifically?
So if I can understand your question, we're employing new outreach workers. Some of them, very few of them will be the ones that are already doing the work. We're trying to, because their workstations will be in the schools that they're in. Some of our outreach workers that we have now with the GVI, with the contract through CARES, they kind of rove, they're in places. These workers will be in the schools. So we have to employ new people.
It says in your, it says in the legislation, in the summary attachment, that's the fiscal impact statement. It says $350,986 for salary and benefits of 2 employees to oversee and administer the program.
Yeah, so those will be city employees that will help with data collection as well as the overall supervision administration of the program, acting as a liaison between public safety and the outreach workers, similar to what Reverend Jones does with the REACH team and other outreach groups. And so when police get some information, they share that with Reverend Jones. Similarly, when the REACH folks, outreach teams get information, they share that with Reverend Jones, and then that is disseminated between the groups to ensure good communication and ensure that intelligence, so to speak, is shared. So when there's a concern of heightened violence or potential retaliation, everybody is aware of it, if that makes sense.
Sure. So where would the 2 positions be in your organizational chart?
They will be in our Office of Community Services and Violence Prevention.
Okay, gotcha. And so they're not new officers, they're not new police officers.
No, there's no police officers in this. These are all civilian.
I appreciate you clarifying that, because I think I heard another member mention the police will be involved, and the answer was yes. And so I was just trying to figure out then exactly kind of what we're voting on, because there's a community concern about there being, officers in school. And right now that's PPS officers. But so we're not, I just want to be clear, we're not putting Pittsburgh police officers into city schools.
Yeah, we're not putting Pittsburgh police officers in the city schools. They only go when requested.
Thank you. I apologize. And the camera angles, I needed you to say that verbally because I couldn't see your response at all. I apologize for not being there. Okay, that's clear for me, and I look forward to reading the rest of the grant, because again, on the face of it, the concept I think is really encouraging, and I'm hopeful that we'll get good outcomes, and I think it's great to have just kind of more grown-ups interacting positively with our kids. So thank you to the elders who are involving themselves in our schools. That's all, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members for discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain till I get the opinion from the law department.
Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. Thank you all for being here. That takes us to our Public Works and Infrastructure Committee, chaired by Councilman Kraus. Our first new paper is Bill 1250.
Bill 1250, excuse me, resolution amending Resolution 723 of 2022, effective December 27, 2022, entitled Resolution Adopting and Approving the 2023 Capital Budget, the 2023 Community Development Program, in the 2023 through 2028 capital improvement program by increasing design, construction, and inspection services by $125,000.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. Bill 1251.
Bill 1251, resolution providing for a reimbursement agreement or agreements with the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation through their Transportation Alternative Set-Aside Program for costs associated with work on the city's Safe Routes to School program and providing for the payment of the cost thereof not to exceed $125,000, federally reimbursable at 100%, and the municipal share of Commonwealth incurred costs not to exceed $0.
Motion to approve.
Second. Discussion.
Discussion. Councilwoman Strasburger?
Thank you. I would love to call the director to the table to learn a little bit more about, just to hear an update on how the Safe Routes to School program is going, and I'll talk as you're walking so that we can save some time. Mostly, I'm interested in finding out how it's going, if there's an update. I see that this one and the previous one has to do with Safe Routes to School. Because my main question is, how are we choosing where to target our money first, rather than, first and then second and then third in this program?
Sure. Kim Lucas, Director for the City's Department of Mobility and Infrastructure. So you all probably remember the Safe Routes to School grant that was applied for in 2018 or 19. This is that money. So we hired the city's first Safe Routes to School coordinator. I think it might have been the first Safe Routes to School coordinator that the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania's Department of Transportation has ever allowed to be hired. So there was a learning curve. It took a while for us to be able to staff up. We had to get their approvals. And so this is for specifically some of the physical improvements that were identified 3 years ago on those walkthroughs. So the first 3 schools that we identified were Arlington Elementary School, Propel Hazelwood, and Faison Pre-K. So these are the ones from our very inaugural year of the program. It's just taken us this long through the PennDOT oversight process to get to the stage where we're able to use that money for the actual preliminary engineering and construction. So those schools were selected by working with PPS Transportation to find out where kids were walking to school and where a lot of kids were being bused into school who lived geographically close enough to walk. This was prior to the COVID reduction in bus service that happened a couple years ago, where a lot of schools, my understanding is that kids were being given a school bus ride even though they could have walked, and the reason they weren't walking was because of the lack of safe infrastructure to get them there. And so by looking at data like that, looking at places where we got, we had good relationships through PPS with the school administration, that is how, and making sure that we had some geographic diversity, and looking at the Title I schools as well to make sure that we were targeting our most underserved schools first. That's how we got to this first list. Now, that was the very initial year. Since that time, we've been able to think about things like opening up a survey to see where schools want to raise their hand and get us to work with them as well. We've also recently applied for the Safe Streets for All grant, which you all probably saw a newspaper article a couple weeks ago about wanting the city to pursue that money. We pursued it. We have so far been unsuccessful in getting it, but it was for a proactive approach where we could do a larger number of schools with sort of a template of treatments to make those schools more accessible for people walking and biking. So it's been really successful in that people know about the program. They love the program. We've hosted Crossing Guard Appreciation Day, Walk to School Day, Bike and Walk to School Day, and things like that. The physical improvements have been a little behind because of the PennDOT, again, oversight process, which is pretty cumbersome and expensive, but we're continuing to grow.
Thank you. So what do the treatments look like? I'm guessing it's more than, thermoplastic piano keys crosswalks. What are we talking about in terms of improvements?
Sure. So I actually have the list for the specific improvements for these schools right here.
Great.
So for Arlington Elementary School, we're looking at the Rechtenwald and McManus intersection, pedestrian scale lighting, an ADA ramp, sidewalk with better curb reveal to help reduce the amount of sidewalk parking in front of that school, painted crosswalks and curb extensions. We're also looking at parking lane striping and Cowsway pavement marking improvements along Rechtenwald Street. For Propel Hazelwood, we're looking at the Mansion and Glenwood intersection improvements, which include traffic safety improvements, so traffic calming and paint, Crosswalk improvements, so the high visibility crosswalks at Johnston and Mansion, as well as Almeda and Glenwood. And then at 2nd Avenue and Millington, we're installing a rectangular rapid flashing beacon and ped island. So that's a pretty substantial signal project. And then at Faison, at Braddock and Susquehanna, we're going to install a pedestrian refuge island, crosswalk improvements at, high-vis crosswalks at Braddock and Tioga. And then on Tioga Street, we're going to install what we call a choker, which is to help reduce the lane width so that people slow down. And we've already done some improvements that we were able to do that we didn't need the PennDOT capital funding to do. For example, at a number of these schools, we've installed wayfinding signage that mimic the school bus route so that kids can help identify how to get to school along the safest route. And we did that in conjunction with the school administrators who helped us prioritize where to do that work.
I understand that this is part of a grant and that it's now just kind of coming to fruition because of all of those bureaucratic hurdles. So federal government, if anyone from the federal government is listening, can you please structure your grants more like ARP so they go straight to the cities and don't have to filter through PennDOT? Thank you. I doubt anyone heard that, but I'll keep drumming that one. So I guess, can we in the future take advantage of some of our other programs that involve the public, like the re-envisioned traffic calming request program, so that as people, will there be the opportunity to look at what those requests are coming in and overlay them on top of routes where kids are walking to school and say, well, we might not be able to do the entire feeder pattern to Colfax, but we can take care of this traffic calming area, and maybe it gets a little bit more priority because it is on a route to school, and this traffic calming area in this intersection, and then it adds up over time to be both taking care of the request that someone's doing and that is making, and happens to be toward a walk to school. How are you thinking about those types of things? When it reminds me of the ideal situation where PWSA is replacing lead lines in the street, lead laterals, and coordinating with any utilities to be able to do, the work at the same time. Okay, we're going to prioritize these because this is going to be most bang for our buck.
Absolutely. So, and what I was looking at on my phone was for our traffic calming selection criteria, because we do exactly what you're suggesting, which is when we receive that request from the public, of which we have about 1,000 right now, we give every request a score. So some of that's based on engineering data, like the speed, how many cars are using that street, the crash history, but we also look at pedestrian generators. So is there a school that this location would serve? And if there is a school or a hospital or a rec center or a senior center, it gets more points, so it gets bumped up on our list. So we absolutely are trying to make sure that when we do our work, it will be in the most impactful locations. That is one of the gaps, though, when we rely on community request, is that it doesn't capture 100% of the locations of need. So by looking at things proactively, like the location of trip generators like schools, and applying for grants that use schools as sort of our cookie cutter metric for what part of the city to focus some of our efforts on, we hope to, as equitably as possible, distribute those resources.
My last question is, given that, I totally understand that 311 requests are not the ideal way because they don't capture people who aren't making the requests, right? And there's some inequity there. And so I get that you're also working for this project, working with schools and the transportation division of the schools. Do you ever coordinate with EMS and talk with them? I would imagine, in fact, I've heard that, you could talk to any zone, any district EMS, and they would be able to tell you the top 3, intersections where they see that of most concern, or the corridors where they really are, paying a lot of attention to. Have you ever done focus groups or, talked with them about their experiences?
That's a great idea. So we have recurring monthly meetings with the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police that sometimes also has representatives from other portions of public safety. So we are engaging on a recurrent basis around specific projects. And we do get requests sometimes when, they've done a traffic study or something, a speed study, and they say, we really think that this intervention would benefit this location. So we do, but I think there's always opportunity to do more. I will say, especially, we engage with EMS specifically around things like speed hump design.
Yeah.
You know, my folks rode around in an ambulance this year strapped into a stretcher, because that's one of the concerns we'd heard from some of the ambulance drivers, was that we're concerned about the comfort of the people we're transporting. And so my staff wanted to make sure that we showed that we heard that concern and that we could experience it ourselves and engage deeply in that way. So we are engaged with them, and we can continue to grow that.
Great. And if there's a way that I can even help convene, as a way to start that conversation, to continue that conversation, but more around as we're creating our capital budget requests this summer, as you as a department are, as every council member is, if there's a way that I can maybe help with that to see if it works in one area and then, maybe it works in other areas too, I'd be happy to take part in that conversation as well.
And I just one other thing you mentioned about way back on the direct recipient of federal funds. So with the RAISE grant, which the city recently was awarded for over $11 million for Center Avenue work in the Hill District, there is an option with that federal money to be a direct recipient as the city, so to bypass PennDOT oversight. However, because nobody in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has done that yet, we do not think that we've got the framework in place for the procurement and to provide all of our own compliance and oversight to really manage a large grant like that at this time. But it is something that my department's actively pursuing, and to find out what it would take for us to become that direct recipient, make sure we have all the financial and accounting and procurement processes in place so that we can have more control over that money and more efficient work as well.
Is that anything that the Southwest Pennsylvania Commission, the SPC, could support municipalities in, or is that never going to be that role?
I mean, they could potentially. They do work with the direct recipients. For example, PRT is a direct recipient of federal transit money. And so there are relationships that they could probably point to that help guide us in standing up our processes. Okay. And I think the Federal Highway Administration directly could as well. It just takes time.
Yes, all of us. Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
Thank you. Councilwoman Gross?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So thank you, Director. And, I'm really excited about the safe routes to schools in general. And we've talked about it many times. And I talked about it, I think, before you were at DOMI, in relation to not just school buildings and their kind of surrounding infrastructure, but also our high-frequency school bus stops. But I'll get to that in a minute. You named the 3 schools that you were doing improvements at, and I'm fully supportive. I'm curious how many students are walking to schools in the current pilot project? Do you know how many kids are in the walk area for those schools, and so how many kids are we reaching?
Not off the top of my head. And these schools were selected pre-COVID. And so we were looking at data from that time of not only how many kids were currently walking, because if a school had 100% of their kids walking, it might not be the best school for us to invest in, because they obviously had what they perceived to be safe routes. So we were looking for places where there were a lot of kids that lived close but were getting bused in. And I know especially Arlington School had that condition. We can certainly get that information for you, but I don't have it off the top of my head right now.
It's so, just a reminder for the public, if you don't have kids, some schools are magnet schools. And so, hypothetically, 100% of the kids are not coming from the neighborhood. They're coming from anywhere else in the city. Some buildings are blended, where it's both a feeder map or kids coming from the neighborhood, either on foot or by bus, but then also other kids coming from farther out. So yeah, it's just a matter of curiosity, honestly. I do want to also emphasize Councilwoman Strasburger's comments that everywhere that we are replacing infrastructure is an opportunity to improve our surface infrastructure as well. So we know that we had 50 years behind in replacing the water lines, the sewer lines, the gas lines. And some places they're doing them all at once, and then we won't be touching that street for a while. But as we reconstruct that street, there's an opportunity to put in greater safety infrastructure. And then I've got to take this opportunity while you're at the table, and I don't often do this, but it is germane to the legislative item. I have these kinds of concerns from the principal and parents at Fulton Elementary in Highland Park, which is actually one of the schools that is surrounded by infrastructure work right now. Typically, there are kids walking right past my house on Euclid to the school, and Euclid is in its final phases of having first water, then sewer, and then also gas line replacements, and it's a little bit of a bombed out street at the moment, but will be put back in place. But there is no dedicated bus lane that's marked with metal street signs in front of Fulton, and so you have both parents dropping off by car, kids arriving by foot, and buses dropping off and fighting for space at the curb on Hampton. And I really need to escalate this to your office because there's conflicts between vehicles and people happening. And kids were almost dropped off in the middle of the street and not at the curb recently because the bus driver was so upset with the cars blocking the curb. So Domi needs to kind of get in there and clarify, working with, there's a crossing guard, but still working, maybe another crossing guard is needed. And I know that we have this at several elementary schools around the city, some in my district, some not in my district, where there's just too many people in conflict, and you've got these tiny, K through 5 students especially, trying to navigate against aggressive driving by both school buses and cars. So it's dangerous. So if you could follow up with me or have someone from your office follow up with me about what we can do at Fulton Elementary. But I mean, the email mentions Dilworth, Liberty School, which is not in my district, and Montessori, which my district surrounds, but is structure physically on Friendship Avenue is not in my district. I would be appreciative.
Sure, happy to take a look.
Thank you so much, Director. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councilwoman Warwick?
Yeah, thanks. I'm very glad to hear about Propel. We talked about that earlier, so that's very good news. I mean, I knew about that project. I did have one question. So as far as calculating the kids that are busing versus walking, do you also have a way to include kids who are being, who are being driven to school? I mean, I know, for example, at Greenfield, we've talked about Greenfield School, and they obviously are very interested in traffic calming or school zone mechanisms, and lots of parents drive their kids to school.
Yeah, that's harder data to get from transportation at PPS. It's more anecdotal that we get from them.
Right.
They have a perception of it, and so we have used that kind of information to help guide some of our choices. Once a school is in our system and has been selected and identified as a champion school, we then go in and we survey. And
Okay.
so that's one of the first things
Okay.
we do is surveying parents and convening a group that it consists of parents and administrators
Mhm.
and our staff to talk in depth about the issues that they experience.
Okay, great. And then just on a sort of on a separate note, so you know that I'm obviously, and we've talked about this before. I think one of the frustrations with street projects is they do take a long time, right? Or the list is very long and there's backlog. So I'm always a big fan of low cost, simple measures that you can sort of give people quickly so they understand that you have heard and know their dilemma while you can't actually get the big thing done, the speed bump or the stop sign or whatever it may be. And I just had a call. It was funny because we had a stop sign conversation, and I just had a call from a constituent where he said, oh, there's people running the stop sign on my street and whatever, and what can we do? So, I look at the Google Maps and I see it, and just, having learned somewhat, I immediately saw, I'm like, yeah, there's no way this guy's getting a speed bump in this area, right? Because it's just not it just is a small street, and it's not, there isn't going to be enough traffic in this. I mean, maybe someday long in the future when we're really getting traffic calming everywhere, but this is not and I said to him, oh, well, what I do on my, because, we have people whose street, I live on a very little street, people fly up and down, and I know in the summer anyway, we always buy those little plastic men that hold the flag out, right? I mean, we just buy them and stick them out on the street. I stick one down in the corner. But what occurred to me is there any, I remember there was at one point a program, it was a few years ago.
Streets.
Yeah, slow streets, and they were like these sandwich boards. And I mean, without actually having it be part of that program, would it be possible for us as the city, in the same way that we sort of give out like a complimentary blue bin, to just give, if there's a neighborhood that's like, yeah, these people fly around this corner, just something that they can kind of stick out there as a...
Yeah, it's something we consider. The Slow Streets program ended up being kind of cumbersome because you've got a lot of little pieces and a lot of people that you're trying to...
Right.
But it's the same concept.
No, I just meant
People
I meant
request
the
it.
sign, like, yeah, not the program to like make it a slow street. We have to ask the neighbors and whatever, but just like, like the physical sandwich board that says like, slow down, our kids live here or whatever.
That's something we can explore for sure.
Okay.
Thank you. Any
I think-
further?
Yeah, me.
Madam President?
I just want to thank you for the work that Domi has done around Langley, because it was Domi that discovered when kids were getting hit by cars and things were happening there, that they never transitioned. When they transitioned the school, they never transitioned the traffic pattern on the outside. And so thank you for your work there, because since then, I don't think we've had any major incidents. So, but I do want to know when the bollards, bollards, what are they called? They were supposed to be temporary across the city. Is there any plan of replacing those, or are they just, that's what we're going to use?
In some places, we have plans to upgrade to concrete, if
Concrete,
that's what
is that
you're
what it is?
asking, to
Okay.
make them more permanent. I know there's money in the budget this year, specifically along Penn Ave, for the bike lane where there's bollards, to do something that's more permanent. So in some places, we do have those plans, and that is a vision we have.
I think it's really difficult because, it's really costly to do some of this stuff, and everybody wants something done immediately, and it's a difficult balancing act to take care of all the district. But I do appreciate that you went in right away and took care of Langley. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? If not, I'll simply mention, I know Kappa downtown has been interested in additional signage to get cars to slow down. The other problem, I don't think you can solve it the way they want it solved, but in that block, when parents pick up, kids just run out from the door in the middle of the block. And so they're looking to figure out how to address something there. But just want to make sure it was at least on your radar.
Yeah, I personally have been out there during pickup time in the afternoon. There's multiple school buses for multiple schools that are serving that specific area, and they pull into the bike lane, and they're using the cross streets. And I am very familiar with that, and we have staff that's been working with them. But I can follow up on that as well.
Okay, thank you. And just because you mentioned it real quick, I asked the URA last week to reach out to your office to discuss the RAISE grant and to better coordinate between our efforts for a number of developments there and the infrastructure dollars. Just FYI.
Great.
Thank you. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. That takes us to Bill 1252.
Bill 1252, resolution providing for an agreement or agreements with HDR Engineering, Inc. for costs associated with the Swindell Bridge project, providing for the payment of the cost thereof not to exceed $1,173,927.57.
Motion to approve.
Second, discussion.
Discussion, Councilman Wilson.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Councilman Lavelle, I think this is the bridge that connects our districts. And just looking for what my hunch is that we're going to repair the beam that has been taking it down to one way in like a 10-foot section.
So this is the major rehab project.
This is the major rehab
This is the major rehab. This agreement will cover preliminary engineering for the tip rehabilitation of the Swindell Bridge. Construction is tentatively going to begin in 2027. This 1,100-foot bridge was originally constructed in 1930, and the last time that it had a major rehab was in the 1990s. So, of course, we're a bit overdue on that. The design that was used during that rehab, which reused original steel forms for the concrete deck, has led to those pervasive maintenance issues. So this major project will take care of those and hopefully get us, a 50 to 100-year bridge.
Well, this is exciting. What happened to the the kind of the
The interim
thing,
project?
the thing that I started off with. Yeah.
The interim project. Let me find out about that. You know, I tried to get some extra notes before I came today because we've done a lot of work on it. You know, that had that issue with the falling debris, and we've had to do some interim fixes. So let me follow up on that.
Yeah, I'm curious. So this would be for the HDR. What does HDR stand for?
I'm not sure. It's a consulting firm.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's so their engineering firm costs, and then this will be the design that will use millions of more dollars to rehab that bridge. Yeah. So I'm just looking for that update on terms of like. So I guess what I'm gaining from this is like, well, you understand. Like, are we still going to do that repair before the whole rehab?
I'll find out.
That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. Bill 1255.
Bill 1255, resolution further amending resolution number 855 of 2011, effective December 29, 2011, as amended, entitled Resolution Adopting and Approving the 2011 Capital Budget and the 2011 Community Development Block Grant Program and the 2011 through 2016 Capital Improvement Program by reducing District 5 neighborhood needs by $11,807.77 and increasing play area improvements by $11,807.77.
Do you mind if we read 1256 too? Okay.
Yes, please.
Bill 1256, resolution further amending resolution number 864 of 2018, effective January 1, 2019, as amended, entitled Resolution Adopting and Approving the 2019 Capital Budget and the 2019 Community Development Block Grant Program and the 2019 through 2024 Capital Improvement Program by reducing Mon Oakland Connector 4-mile run by $24,000 and increasing 4-mile run playground by $24,000.
Motion to approve with discussion, please.
Yeah. Oh, second. Yeah, second. So just to clarify.
Excuse. Thank you. Discussion. I'll defer to Councilwoman Warwick.
Yeah, thanks. There is a playground project in 4-mile run that there was a verbal commitment to additional funds for that playground, and the parts were ordered, the plans were made, et cetera, but then it somehow, I don't know if there was just it was before I was here, a miscommunication, but that funding did not actually make it into the project. So they were short a little bit on that playground project. So rather than go backwards and redesign, we just are supplementing that playground project using old unused neighborhood needs money and 4-mile run Mon Oakland connector money. That said, we did make a mistake on the money in that there was another playground project that had gotten neighborhood needs commitment years ago that just came up and are ready to use the funds. So we didn't want to take away from that project. So we're just adjusting. That's what these two amendments here are, just adjusting the amounts that are coming out of neighborhood needs and 4-mile run so that both playground projects can happen. Does that make sense? Okay, so in that case, I would then motion to amend by substitution for both?
Second. Both bills, correct, Councilwoman?
Yes, both bills, 1255 and 1256. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Both bills have been amended. Any further discussion on the bills as amended? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation on both bills. That takes us to Land Use and Economic Development Committee, which is chaired by Councilman Wilson. Our first deferred paper is Bill 270.
Bill 270, ordinance supplementing the Pittsburgh Code Title 7 Business Licensing, Article 7 Business Licenses by creating a new Chapter 768, Short-Term Rentals.
Motion to approve. Discussion.
Second.
Discussion, Councilman?
Yep. So this bill, and then also 465, which we can, I'll do the same process for the next one. Basically, on the heels of the decision that's going to be made for rental registry, I'd like to see that outcome and hold this bill for 8 weeks.
Discussion. Yeah, I would like to have had some discussion about holding it for 8 weeks before we hold it for 8 weeks. So we can hold it for one and let us talk.
Yeah.
And then okay. Thank you. But I do want to thank you for doing a lot of work on this. But I think Councilwoman Gross is also going to put in some amendments too. So it'd be good for us all to sit down and talk. Thank you.
Can we read the other bill and make the same motion?
Hold 1 week.
Well, motion to hold 1 week.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? The bill will be held 1 week. Bill 465.
Bill 465, ordinance amending the Pittsburgh Code Title 5 Traffic, Article 7 Parking, Chapter 549 Residential Parking Permit Program, 549.08 Visitor Permits, Non-Resident Permits, so as to relate the issuance of residential parking permits for short-term rentals to the issuance of licenses by the Department of Permits, Licenses, and Inspections, authorizing the operation of short-term rentals in the city of Pittsburgh.
Motion to hold 1 week.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Bill will be held 1 week. Bill 661.
Bill 661, resolution accepting a new street name, Wood Ring Court, in the 23rd Ward of the City of Pittsburgh, as per recommendation by the City of Pittsburgh Addressing Committee. The following street name was approved by CPAC in June of 2022. The name listed in this ordinance shall be made official in accordance with the Pittsburgh Code Title 4 Public Places and Property, Chapter 420, Uniform Street Naming and Addressing.
Motion to hold 2 weeks.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The bill will be held 2 weeks. That moves us to Recreation, Youth, and Senior Services Committee, chaired by Councilwoman Strasburger. Our first deferred paper is Bill 1157.
Bill 1157, resolution naming the Lower Herschel Park Field as Danbury Field.
Motion to approve. Oh, sorry. That's Councilwoman Strasburger's committee.
We handled Bill 661. I apologize already. We did. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. Bill 1181.
Bill 1181, resolution authorizing renaming Shortier's Field to Shortier's Wind Gap Field.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. That brings us to our last committee of the day, Innovation, Performance, Asset Management, and Technology Committee, chaired by Councilwoman Warwick. We have one new paper, Bill 1248.
Bill 1248, resolution amending Resolution 429 of 2022, authorizing the mayor and the director of the Department of Public Safety to enter on behalf of the city of Pittsburgh into a professional service agreement or agreements with Open Innovation Plans, LLC, for records management software services at an overall cost to the city not to exceed $131,692.92 to add funding due to an increased scope of work.
Motion to approve, brief discussion. I just wanted to just bring to the table, it's really more of a, so under IMP, I have a weekly meeting where Director Norman and I go through any new legislation, and we forego the meeting if there isn't any new legislation. But this has actually happened a couple of times now where tech or, IT-related legislation has come through, but it hasn't come through INP, and so it sort of surprised me at the, when it comes in as a new paper. I mean, this is fine. I looked it up, so it didn't, it's fine. It's for animal control records management to replace an outdated system. It makes sense, but would I talk to Director Norman about that? Because it seems like sometimes it's public safety or sometimes it's another group, and that's what's a little unclear to me.
As far as for any type of software, it doesn't matter what department it comes from. We always put it up under IMP because that's where the software legislation is supposed to go.
So I guess the question is, who should I connect with to make sure that I'm getting, I mean, I just like to get an email, even if I just read it, just so that I don't feel surprised.
I'll talk to you after this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. That exhausts our agenda for today. We do have meeting announcements this afternoon. Council will hold a Cablecast post-agenda discussion at 1:30 and a Cablecast public hearing at 2:30.
Reconsider that bill.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
well, we haven't adjourned, so let me finish, and we can still do it. Although if Bobby walks away, you won't be able to. This afternoon, council will hold a Cablecast post-agenda discussion at 1:30 and a Cablecast public hearing at 2:30 on the status of registered community organizations. To register to speak at the public hearing, please fill out the sign-up form on the council meeting webpage or call the clerk's office at 412-255-2138. Speaker registration will close this afternoon at 1 p.m. Next week, council will hold our regular and study committee meetings on Tuesday, March 7th and Wednesdays, March 8th at 10 a.m. respectively. Speaker registration will close at 9 a.m. the day of the meeting. To register to speak at these meetings and hearings, please fill out the sign-up form on the council meeting webpage. You may also call the clerk's office at 412-255-2138. And on Thursday, March 9th at 1 p.m., council will hold a pre-agenda interviews for OMB Assistant Director, the Parking Authority Board, the Public Art Committee, the Housing Opportunity Fund Advisory Board, and the Clean Pittsburgh Commission. Anything from members?
Yeah. First, I want to reconsider the bill with the, make a motion to reconsider. Do you remember what the bill number was?
1249,
1229, thank you.
49.
1249. It's the one with the grant. I want to make a motion to reconsider so that we can get the opinion from the law department and then vote, so that we're not voting before we know what the law department says.
This is the grant that was long discussed regarding the safe streets, the safe passageways. So, did you second that, Councilwoman Gross?
I did. I think I heard a motion to
Yes.
reconsider Bill 1249.
Yes.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 And
The-
then, Madam Clerk, you send a letter to the law department saying that we want, or you work with our solicitor, to know that it's okay for council to vote on this, that it came through the proper way and the proper process. He can word that a little bit better for me, thank you.
So 1249 is back on the table. Are you now wishing to hold it for a week?
Yeah, I want to hold it for 1 week, please. Motion to hold for 1 week.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 1249 will now be held for 1 week.
Thank you.
Anything else from members?
Yeah, I just want to say, I want to call for a post agenda on the state of mental health in the region. And we're going to have a post agenda for that. And I want to remind people that we have a post agenda and a public hearing today on RCOs and the status of RCOs and what needs to happen or not doesn't need to happen in the city of Pittsburgh. So that's today at 1:30 and 2:30.
Can we get a second on her motion to hold a post agenda on the state of mental health?
Thank you.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Madam President will work with Madam Clerk.
Thank you.
Anything else from members? If not, motion to excuse the absent member, approve the minutes, and adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.